Veronica Holloway sat by the window, holding a cup of tea that had already gone cold. The soft ticking of the clock filled the quiet living room. It had been 2 days since her husband's death anniversary, and she had spent the morning going through old papers, wills, property documents, and investment statements. Her life had been full of hard work and sacrifice, and she wanted to make sure everything was in order before it was too late. That evening, her daughter, Claire, came to visit. Claire was 34, beautiful, sharp, and confident, but lately, her visits had become shorter, her tone colder. She was always busy, always asking about money, never really about her mother's health or feelings. Veronica still loved her deeply, but she had begun to see how much greed had replaced kindness in Claire's heart. When Claire arrived, she hugged her mother quickly, her perfume filling the air. "So, Mom, did you finally decide what to do with the will?" she asked casually, sitting down on the sofa. Veronica looked at her, her heart heavy. "Yes," Veronica said quietly. "I've decided to give most of my savings to the charity your father and I supported for years. The people that really need it." Claire's smile disappeared. "You're giving away my inheritance?" she asked sharply. Veronica took a deep breath. "It's not your inheritance, Claire. It's what your father and I earned. You already have a good life, a home, and a job. I want this money to help people who have nothing." For a few seconds, Claire just stared at her, disbelief written all over her face. Then she stood up suddenly. "So, after everything I've done for you, you're just giving my share to strangers?" "Claire," Veronica said softly, "you don't understand. This isn't about punishment. I want to leave something meaningful behind." But Claire's voice rose. "No, Mom, you're choosing them over me." Veronica flinched at the harsh tone. "I'm choosing what's right," she whispered. Claire's face twisted with anger. She grabbed her bag and said coldly, "Fine, do whatever you want, but don't expect me to come running when you need me." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the house like thunder. Veronica sat in silence, her heart aching. She didn't want to lose her daughter. But deep inside, she knew this conversation had been coming for years. Claire had changed. The girl who once made handmade cards for her birthdays was now a woman who only talked about money, cars, and vacations. That night, Veronica couldn't sleep. She replayed the conversation over and over again in her mind. Maybe she had been too harsh. Maybe she should have explained better. But then she remembered the look in Claire's eyes, cold, entitled, like she believed the money belonged to her by right. That hurt more than anything. The next morning, Veronica tried to distract herself by cleaning. She dusted the photo frames, ran her fingers over old pictures of Claire as a child, smiling, holding her father's hand, laughing without worry. She missed that version of her daughter more than words could describe. Around noon, she made lunch and sat down to check her bank account, planning to pay a few bills. But when she logged in, her hands froze. The screen showed a balance that made her heart race. Almost everything was gone. Thousands of dollars missing overnight. Her savings, her emergency fund, everything. Veronica blinked, thinking maybe she had made a mistake. She refreshed the page, but the numbers didn't change. The transactions were all listed. Money transfers to unknown accounts. Card withdrawals she had made. Her breath grew short. Her fingers trembled as she held her phone, trying to call the bank. But then she stopped. Something in her gut told her this wasn't random. She remembered Claire's angry words. "You'll regret this." "No," Veronica whispered to herself, shaking her head. She wouldn't. But deep down, a cold fear crept in. Then she remembered something she had almost forgotten. A few weeks ago, she had installed small cameras in her study and near her safe after a stranger had tried to scam her on the phone. She had never told anyone, not even Claire. The cameras recorded silently, every time someone entered the room. Her heart pounded as she opened her laptop and clicked through the footage from the last 2 nights. The images loaded slowly, every second stretching like an hour. At first, everything looked normal, an empty room, quiet and still. Then, around 10:47 p.m., the door opened. Veronica's breath caught. There they were, Claire and her husband, Ethan, stepping into her house. Claire's voice came through the tiny speaker. "Just hurry, Ethan. She's asleep." Veronica watched, frozen, as her daughter sat at her desk, turned on her computer, and logged into her bank account. Ethan stood beside her, holding papers, her account information. They whispered, laughed, and made the transfers. Claire even said, "She'll never know." Old people barely check online banking. Veronica's lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. She pressed pause, unable to watch more. Her daughter, her own blood. She leaned back in her chair, covering her face with her hands. The pain hit her harder than any betrayal she had ever known. She didn't cry loudly. She just sat there, silent, her heart breaking piece by piece. For a long time, Veronica stayed in that chair, thinking she could call Claire and scream. She could call the police right away. But something inside her told her to stay calm. This time, she needed to be smart. So, she took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and started saving every file, every video clip, every bit of evidence. When she was done, she called her lawyer, Thomas Reed, the man who had helped her since her husband's death. "Thomas," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I need your help. My daughter, she stole from me." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then Thomas spoke gently. "I'm sorry, Veronica. But don't worry, we'll handle this the right way. Just don't confront her yet." Veronica nodded slowly, though he couldn't see it. "All right," she said softly. "Not yet." That night, Veronica looked out the window again, the city lights glowing faintly in the distance. She felt older than ever, but her heart had changed. The sadness was still there, but under it, something new was forming. Strength. If her daughter wanted to betray her, she would have to face the truth. And this time, Veronica would not be the one crying. The next morning, Veronica woke up early, her eyes red from a night without sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about what she had seen on the recording. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter's face, focused, cold, and unbothered, while stealing from her own mother. It didn't feel real. Claire wasn't supposed to be like that. She was supposed to be the sweet girl who used to help bake cookies, who laughed easily, who hugged her after every phone call. But now, all Veronica could feel was shock and pain. She made herself a cup of tea, though she couldn't taste a thing. Her mind kept spinning with questions. Why would Claire do this? Did she hate me that much? Was Ethan the one behind it? Or was this really her idea? Veronica sat down at her desk again. Her laptop was still open. She watched the recording one more time, slowly, carefully. Every detail mattered. She noticed how Claire used her own voice to approve the transactions, how Ethan read details from papers that had been in her locked cabinet. He must have copied her house key long ago. As she watched, something inside her changed. The shock turned to calm determination. "I won't let them get away with this," she whispered. She called her lawyer, Thomas Reed, again. "Thomas, I have everything on video. You need to see this," she said. By noon, Thomas arrived at her house. He was a kind man in his 50s, patient and steady, someone who had helped Veronica and her late husband with legal matters for years. He listened quietly as Veronica explained what had happened, then watched the footage with serious eyes. When it ended, he looked at her and said softly, "Veronica, I'm so sorry, but you did the right thing recording this. It's solid evidence." "What should I do now?" she asked. Thomas thought for a moment. "First, we'll contact the bank and report unauthorized access. Then we'll inform the police. But before we act, we'll make sure the money is frozen so they can't hide it. Don't talk to Claire or Ethan yet. Let us handle this quietly." Veronica nodded. She trusted him completely. They spent hours going through documents. Veronica showed him her bank statements, the transfers, the footage timestamps. Thomas helped her file the official complaint and call the bank. The representative confirmed that large transfers had been made to 2 new accounts, both under Ethan's name. The bank froze the transactions immediately. Veronica thanked them politely, but when she hung up, her hands were still trembling. Thomas placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," he said gently. "Don't think of this as revenge. Think of it as protection." That night, as Veronica sat alone, she stared at the dark street outside her window. She wondered if Claire even realized what she had done. Did she know the bank had caught it? Was she still laughing with Ethan, Thinking they had fooled her, her phone buzzed suddenly, pulling her from her thoughts. A message appeared. Claire, hi Mom, just checking in. Hope you're okay. Love you. Red heart. Veronica's chest tightened. The message felt like a cruel joke. For the first time in her life, she didn't know how to reply to her own daughter. She simply turned off her phone and set it down, refusing to let herself cry. 2 days passed. The police started investigating quietly, as Thomas had planned. They traced the accounts, verified the login location, and confirmed that the activity came from Veronica's own house while she was out. Everything matched the timeline from the video. By the third day, Veronica received a call from the investigating officer. Mrs. Holloway, he said, we've reviewed your evidence. It's very clear. We'll need to bring in your daughter and her husband for questioning. Her throat went dry. When? Tomorrow morning, he replied. After hanging up, Veronica sat in silence. The truth was finally coming out, but it didn't bring her peace. It only made her heart ache more. She didn't want to see her daughter behind bars. She wanted her to understand the pain she had caused. That night, she dreamed of Claire as a little girl again, running through the backyard, laughing, waving her arms, calling, Mom, look at me. Veronica woke up with tears on her pillow. The next morning came too quickly. Thomas arrived early to take her to the police station. Veronica dressed neatly, her gray hair pinned back, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. On the way there, Thomas said quietly, you can still decide how far you want this to go. You don't have to destroy her, but you do have to face her. Veronica nodded. I know. I just want her to see what she's done. When they arrived, the police were already waiting. Claire and Ethan were brought in shortly after. Veronica watched them from across the room. Claire looked nervous, but when she saw her mother, she forced a smile. Mom, Claire said softly, why are you here? What's going on? Veronica said nothing. She simply handed her phone to the officer, who played the recording on the small screen. The sound of Claire's voice filled the room. She'll never know, it said, followed by her laugh. Ethan's voice came next. We deserve this money more than she does. Claire's face went pale. Ethan looked down, avoiding her eyes. When the video ended, the silence was deafening. Veronica finally spoke, her voice calm but cold. I didn't want to believe it was you, but you made sure I couldn't deny it. Mom, please, Claire whispered, tears filling her eyes. It was a mistake. Ethan said we could just borrow it and return it later. Veronica shook her head slowly. You didn't borrow it, Claire. You stole it. The officer turned to Veronica. Mrs. Holloway, do you wish to press charges? The entire room went still. Thomas looked at her, waiting for her answer. Claire clasped her hands together, trembling. Veronica took a deep breath. Not yet, she said softly. I want to think about it. Claire looked confused. You're not going to? Veronica interrupted, her eyes steady. You'll see soon enough what I decide. She stood up and walked toward the door. Every step felt heavy, but her heart was clear. This wasn't over. Not yet. That night, when Veronica returned home, she sat by her window again. The lights outside flickered softly, and for the first time in days, she felt calm. She knew what she needed to do next. And whatever it was, it would make her daughter finally understand the meaning of loss, trust, and redemption. The next morning, Veronica woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, and for the first time in days, she felt calm. She had made her decision the night before. The evidence was strong, the police were waiting, and her daughter's betrayal was no longer a secret. But deep inside, she wasn't sure if she was ready to see Claire again. She sat by the window with her tea, the morning light spilling into the room. The memories came flooding back. Claire's first school recital, her wedding day, the way she used to hold Veronica's hand while crossing the street. Those memories were warm, gentle, and full of love. But now, they felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Thomas called around 9. Veronica, he said softly, the police will question Claire and Ethan again today. Do you want to come? Veronica hesitated, then nodded to herself. Yes, I need to hear what she says. By 10 o'clock, she was sitting quietly in the small room at the police station. Claire and Ethan were brought in a few minutes later. Claire's eyes were red from crying. Ethan looked tense, his jaw tight. The officer in charge, a calm man named Detective Miller, started the questioning. Mrs. Holloway, he said, you've already provided solid evidence. But before we proceed with legal action, we'd like to confirm if you wish to press charges. Veronica didn't answer right away. She looked at Claire instead. Do you have anything to say to me? Claire opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hands trembled. Mom, I don't know what to say, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you. Veronica raised her eyebrows slightly. Then what did you mean to do? You emptied my account, Claire. You and Ethan planned it. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. We were desperate, he muttered. The business failed, and the debts were piling up. Claire said you'd never even notice. Stop, Claire snapped, turning toward him. It wasn't just me. Enough, Veronica interrupted firmly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it silenced them both. You could have come to me. You could have told me the truth. Instead, you came into my home like thieves. Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks. I made a mistake, she whispered. Please, Mom. I was angry. You said I wouldn't get anything from your will. I thought you didn't love me anymore. Veronica's eyes softened, but only for a second. Love, she said quietly. You think stealing from me is love? Claire looked down, ashamed. Detective Miller cleared his throat. Mrs. Holloway, I need to know. Do you wish to press charges? Veronica took a long breath. Everyone waited. Thomas looked at her, ready to support whatever decision she made. Finally, she said, Not yet. I don't want her in prison. Not yet. Claire's head shot up. You're not pressing charges? No, Veronica said slowly. But that doesn't mean you're forgiven. You need to understand what you've done, and I need to decide what comes next. Detective Miller nodded respectfully. We'll keep the case open, ma'am. You can still choose later. Veronica stood up. Thank you, Detective. That's all for now. She turned to leave, but Claire suddenly reached out. Mom, please wait. I'll pay you back. I swear. Veronica stopped at the door and looked at her. You can't pay back what you stole with money, Claire. You took something much bigger, my trust. Then she walked away, her steps steady, her heart heavy but clear. Outside, the wind was cold. Veronica pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders as Thomas caught up with her. You handled that well, he said softly. I don't feel good about it, she admitted. But I don't want revenge. I want her to change. Thomas nodded. Sometimes, that's harder than punishment. They drove back in silence. When Veronica reached home, the sun was setting. The house felt different now. Quiet but strong, like it belonged to her again. She sat at her desk and opened her will one more time. Her pen hovered over the paper. She had already written that Claire would get nothing. But now, she had a new idea, something that wasn't about punishment, but about teaching her daughter the meaning of effort and respect. She spent the next few hours writing a new clause with Thomas's help. When she finished, she felt at peace. That night, as she sat in bed, Veronica's phone rang. It was Claire. Mom, please answer. Claire's voice broke through the line. I don't know what to do. Ethan's gone. He packed his things and left. I'm scared. Veronica closed her eyes. Her heart ached, but she didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, You're going to have to learn how to stand on your own now, Claire. Maybe that's the lesson life is giving you. Please, Mom. I'll do anything, Claire cried. Veronica sighed. You said that before, when you wanted something from me. But this time, if you mean it, I'll give you a way to prove it. What do you mean? Claire asked. You'll see, Veronica said simply, and ended the call. The next morning, she signed the final version of her will. The ink dried slowly, but the words were firm. Claire Holloway will receive a monthly living allowance from her mother's estate, on one condition. She must work full-time for the charity foundation established in Veronica Holloway's name. Veronica smiled faintly as she put the papers away. It wasn't revenge. It was justice wrapped in love. 2 days later, she visited the charity herself. The director, a kind woman named Mrs. Hensley, welcomed her warmly. Veronica explained her plan quietly. When Claire comes to you, please give her a place here. She needs to learn the value of giving. Mrs. Hensley nodded with understanding. Of course, Mrs. Holloway. We'll take care of her like one of our own. When Veronica left the office, the sky was painted in shades of orange and gold. She felt lighter than she had in weeks. The truth had been revealed. The damage had been done. But now, something new was beginning, something that might just heal the wound her daughter had created. As she walked home, Veronica whispered softly to herself, "She wanted my money. Now, she'll learn what it means to earn it." And for the first time in a long time, she smiled. A month passed since the day Veronica changed her will. Life in her big old house had gone back to its usual quiet rhythm. The garden was blooming again, and the sound of birds in the morning helped her find peace. But even as she tried to move on, part of her heart still ached whenever she thought of Claire. A mother could forgive, but she could never truly forget. One rainy afternoon, Veronica sat near the fireplace reading. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the charity's director, Mrs. Hensley. "Mrs. Holloway, Claire came today. She asked to start working. I thought you want to know." Veronica put the phone down slowly. For a long moment, she just stared at the fire, the orange flames dancing quietly. Then, a small, bittersweet smile appeared on her face. "So, she finally came," she whispered. At the charity office that day, Claire stood by the door, soaked from the rain. She wore simple clothes, no jewelry, no designer bag, none of the things she used to show off. Mrs. Hensley greeted her kindly. "You must be Claire," she said gently. "Your mother told me about you." Claire looked down, embarrassed. "Yes, ma'am. I want to work here." "Good," Mrs. Hensley said with a smile. "We always need more helping hands. Let's start with something simple." That day, Claire helped sort donated clothes. She folded shirts, packed boxes, and wiped down shelves. Her hands hurt, her back ached, and her pride burned. But for the first time in her life, she didn't complain. The following weeks were hard. Claire woke up early every day, took the bus, and spent hours lifting, cleaning, and organizing. The people at the charity didn't know who she was or what she had done. They only saw a quiet woman trying to work hard. At first, she was clumsy and awkward, but soon she began to learn. One afternoon, she helped a young mother who came in crying because her baby had no clothes. Claire gave her a bag of warm blankets and tiny shoes. The woman hugged her tightly, whispering, "Thank you. You don't know how much this means." Claire froze for a second. No one had said thank you to her in a long time, not without wanting something in return. For the first time, she felt something different inside, something heavy but pure. That night, she sat in her small apartment, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were clearer. She whispered to herself, "I think this is what Mom wanted me to learn." Meanwhile, Veronica kept her distance. She didn't visit the charity often, but she stayed updated through Mrs. Hensley. Every week, she received short notes. "Claire's doing better." She helped organize the donation drive. "She seems more humble now." Each message warmed Veronica's heart. She didn't say it out loud, but she was proud. Still, she wanted to be sure her daughter's change was real, not just guilt but growth. One bright morning, 3 months later, Veronica finally decided to visit. She wore a simple dress and carried a box of old books to donate. When she entered the charity center, no one recognized her at first. The room was busy, people talking, sorting, working together. Then she saw Claire, bending down to tie a little boy's shoe. For a second, Veronica just watched her. Claire's hair was tied back, her clothes plain, her hands covered in dust. But there was something new in her face. A softness, a peace Veronica hadn't seen in years. Claire looked up and froze. "Mom," she whispered, standing quickly. Everyone around them went quiet. Veronica smiled faintly. "Hello, Claire. I came to drop off some donations." Claire's eyes filled with tears. She walked closer, her voice trembling. "I didn't think you'd come. I wanted to see for myself," Veronica said gently. "To see the woman my daughter has become." Claire wiped her face, shaking her head. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." Veronica's voice was soft but steady. "Forgiveness isn't something we deserve, Claire. It's something we choose to give." Claire broke down crying. "I was selfish. I hurt you, and I'll never be able to fix that. But I promise I'm trying." Every day, Veronica reached out and took her daughter's hands. They were rough and calloused, no longer soft from easy living. "I know," she said simply, "and I can see it." They stood like that for a moment, mother and daughter, broken but healing. The people around them pretended not to watch, but everyone felt the emotion in the air. After that day, things began to change slowly. Claire continued working at the charity, not because of the will, but because she wanted to. She helped organize food drives, spoke kindly to the volunteers, and even started a small program teaching young women how to manage money. Months passed, and one evening, Veronica received a handwritten letter in the mail. She recognized her daughter's handwriting immediately. "Mom, I finally understand why you did what you did. For so long, I thought money was everything. I thought love meant gifts, comfort, and control. But here, I've seen people who have nothing, yet they smile more than I ever did. I'm ashamed of what I became, but I'm also thankful for the lesson you gave me. You didn't just save me from punishment. You saved me from myself. I love you, Mom." Claire. Veronica's eyes filled with tears as she read the letter. She placed it beside her late husband's photo and whispered, she finally found her way. That night, she slept peacefully, knowing that her daughter had learned the one truth that mattered most. Money can't buy love, and trust can only be earned with honesty and heart. From then on, every Sunday, Claire visited Veronica for tea. They laughed again, softly at first, then easily like old times. The pain never fully disappeared, but it no longer ruled their lives. Veronica often looked at her daughter with quiet pride, thinking sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself again. And for the first time in years, both women were truly free.